The Town are on their travels on Saturday afternoon when we make the long trip to Middlesbrough for the lunchtime kickoff. Alongside me to preview the game, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, long way to go. Let's hope we're rewarded with 3 points.
Yeah, the A1's a decent road when you've got those in the back pocket, isn't it?
Absolutely is. Yes, indeed. Early start. Let's hope we make it worth it. We will preview the game right after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, which is shortlisted for the Best Football League podcast in this year's Football Content Awards. This season we are sponsored by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I mentioned before the intro, we are previewing Middlesbrough versus Luton Town, 12:30 kickoff on Saturday afternoon. If you're not stupid like myself and making the ridiculously long journey up there, Sky Sports Plus is the channel where you can watch this game. Tickets are still available, but they might have gone off sale by the time you watch this, so check the website before you travel. So you don't want to go there without a ticket, that is for sure. Jimbo, last time we were in this division, we were battling it out for a spot in the top two. Not the case this time around, obviously. Neither of us are probably where we want to be. We're certainly not. They're 8th going into it. They're probably outside where they want to be. But Middlesbrough are a big side in this division. Michael Carrick's one of the better coaches in this division. I think he's now the second longest serving coach in this division after Mark Robbins was brutally sacked on Thursday. And this is a definition of a tricky encounter.
Yeah, they always have been down the seasons, haven't they? Yeah, the last time in the Championship, it was neck and neck until they came down to the Kenilworth Road and gave them a hiding, and then they dropped off, really. Considering that they were giving it all this beforehand, that was lovely, wasn't it? But I don't think there's going to be too much of that this time around because of these the positions we're in. But Luton have picked up. It's been a good week so far. And let's hope that they can finish it in a far better way than they did last time there was a 3-game week.
Cool, yeah, you're not wrong there. Particularly those of us making the journey. We do not want to see a 2-0 lead disappear, that's for sure. We want to see a 2-0 lead. We just don't want to see it disappearing. Middlesbrough, do you know what? I'm finding it hard to work them out. I mean, on paper, they don't look as good as 2 years ago. I mean, Chuba Akpom was the top scorer in the division by about 1,000 goals, wasn't he? He could not stop scoring. We started that scoring run, didn't we? Of course, this was Rob Edwards' first game in charge of Luton after the World Cup break. What would that be now? 23 months ago? That's time's flown, hasn't it? He's not around. Cameron Archer was there as well. We tried to sign him, but he's not around. He's at Sheffield United now. And I think it's Aaron Ramsey, wasn't it? Who was the other one? Not that Aaron Ramsey, the Aston Villa version. Who was the other one? He's not there either. He's at Burnley now, isn't he? They've signed it permanently. So it's a completely different sort of setup up front for them. And looking at the numbers, they create so many chances, this lot. They're a country mile clear on XG in this division. Like, when you think that they're 8th and they've only scored something like 18 from 14 games, of which 4 of those were at QPR the other night, who defended horrendously, let me tell you, in that game. The shot conversion isn't great. Tommy Conway's their sort of main centre forward now. He came from Bristol City in the summer. They've got Emmanuel Latte-Lath, who went on a scoring streak last season but seems to be like Elijah. He either scores in bursts or doesn't. But all the numbers that I see, they look like Galacticos attacking wise, and then you look at the actual numbers that matter and they've not really got anywhere.
Well, it just goes to show that XG is like the Emperor's new clothes, really, isn't it? Because we've had XG coming out of our ears for scoring and not conceding, and we've defied the odds on all of them really so far this season. Hopefully that changed this week, but particularly with that win against Cardiff on Wednesday and the shutout, which was good. Might have changed a few of those figures. I'm not sure, but sometimes it's useful to look at. I know the older heads aren't having it at all, and some people live by it as like a religion, which is nonsense. You've got
there's a world in between that's probably the right place to inhabit, isn't there? But the one statistic that blew my mind when I looked at it, and it might just be that FootMob's had a bit of a mental one with that, they've had 100 more touches in the opposition box than any other team this season. We've only played 14 games. That's 7 more than the next person, the next team, which I think is Leeds United, per game. I mean, that is crazy, isn't it? To have only scored 18 goals with, we're talking bordering on 500 touches in the opposition box, of which only 18 of them. And I'm not even sure that all 18 have come from inside the box, goals-wise, have ended up in the back of the net. That seems like a lot of faff.
Well, it seems like a positive thing in terms of what for Luton. Obviously, we've talked a lot in recent weeks about how Luton are going slightly direct to get up the pitch and play where they want to play and play in these right areas, is the current sort of phrase that Rob Edwards is using. And clearly they're playing in the areas they want to be playing, but the fact that they're not converting as much as those touches suggest, just by the raw numbers, without having to analyse every second of them, but that could be a bonus for Luton. It probably would have been a bonus when we were struggling for defenders, but even more so now if we can go up there and hopefully play. There's going to be changes, but maybe not there.
Yeah, we are going to have to defend really, really well here. By looking at the sheer numbers, their attacking output is relentless. Okay, they might not always put the ball in the back of the net, but chance creation it is high. So teams that go there and get something, in the main, what you can deduce from those numbers, they ride their luck, and we haven't had much of that this season, have we? So let's hope Lady Luck shines on us this afternoon. It's not a happy hunting ground for us, really. I know we won there in COVID season when I think it was Ryan Tunnicliffe, he of past glory, scored in a 1-0 win, but the last 2 games with a crowd, lost 2-1 and then lost 2-1 in Rob's debut game. Jordan Clark put us ahead in that game. They equalised soon after with Akpom. Amari Bell got sent off when Isaiah Jones couldn't stop diving down that touchline, and I think it was Crooks who scored from a dodgy free kick in injury time. Crooks is at Real Salt Lake in MLS now, so he won't be scoring any winners on Saturday. That's for sure. That's Middlesbrough. Largely you know what you're going to get from them. Well-coached side, from a modernised coach who likes to play progressive football, who's come through the West Ham academy system, who's played for Man United for God knows how long, who was being touted as being both West Ham and Manchester United manager of the future. Really, really good coach, Michael Carrick, as he was a really, really good footballer. They're a footballing side that just get on the front foot. It's a tough ask, but if there is a style that might negate some of it, we might be the ones that have it.
I think that might be the case for a lot of teams, really. People don't like playing Luton, and they say that Luton are one-dimensional Route 1 team, and that is, from what we've seen, is only half the story. That they may go long to get you further away from their goal and start playing further up the pitch, but when they do, there's talent there, and I'm quite happy for the rest of the Championship, the rest of the division, to continue thinking that, and then let Luton go about their work.
Listen, this would have been hard if it was the first game of the season, right? But to come 60 odd hours after the last game's finished, and you've got to get there, and we've been shot in the foot schedule wise here. Look, we'll have it in our advantage at some point. I have not looked through the fixture list to see when it is, but we'll have it at some point this season, so we can't moan too much about it. But this is a tough ask. So it's good that we go there with 4 points. It's not a free hit because we're 19th in the table, but it's a game that if you're looking down the list of games that have significant importance to them in terms of the outcome of your season, it's not one that you have to take 3 points from, having just taken 4 from the last 2. Of course, we'd love 3 points, we'd love a point, but, chances are we've been there in much better shape with the schedule much more favourable, and we've lost our last 2. I mean, couldn't be any more favourable than last time. They would just had 5 weeks off, lost 2-1. It's not a free hit in terms of that, but anything we can get out of this game probably would be considered a nice bonus.
I think so. Just any time you go up to the Riverside, I mean, mitigating circumstances the last time. I think obviously the sending off didn't help, and it was Rob's first game. It wasn't like they were, battered. They it was a decent. They equipped themselves quite well, and yeah, I think going up there this time in better form is more favourable than where we were a couple of weeks ago, which I wouldn't fancied it at all whatsoever. I think that the fact that there's some players that are going to be back available, well, they are available now, sorry, so you've got options to change the squad, and certainly with some of the players that have been on the bench, those options, I don't think we're talking about them enough, or people aren't talking about it enough, because when you've been able to rest Victor Moses on the bench for Wednesday night's game, surely he'll feature at some point. Shandon Baptiste, 2 very good second half cameos, surely he will. Clark's played all but 27 minutes of the entire championship season. That's got to give at some point. There's options now, and it's like, it's very bizarre to be talking about options.
It is, yeah, that's true. But let's talk about them. This is our 3rd preview in a week. There's no point in us going through the team from 1 to 11. We've done that in the first 2. Where do you see changes? Rob did say, and we'll hear from Rob shortly, we're recording this before his press conference, but we've not got this out to you in time before the press conference has taken place. So we'll include some snippets from the press conference, so you will hear from him shortly. Where do you see the changes that he's said on Wednesday night that are going to happen? Where do you most think? Obviously, we don't know Alfie's situation. Let's suspect he's not fit. He didn't look fit when he went off, did he? He said, 60 hours recovery. Unless they take a leg off and put another one on, it's hard work. Are you looking at Bell going down there and Holmes coming into the centre of defence, or are you just looking at Victor Moses starting left wing back like he did when Alfie was suspended?
I think probably the latter. I don't think that the back three were put under so much relentless pressure. They weren't against Cardiff that they'll be knackered. Yes, they're coming. Yes, Bell and Mengi are coming back from injury, but they both looked relatively strong. Bell did, certainly. And McGuinness is sort of coming into his own. I think that will stay as a solid developing threesome partnership, and I think he'll keep that. So then I think it would just be a straight swap then with Moses and Doughty.
That's fair enough. I guess where the change really does need to happen though is in midfield, because we don't have to run our Nenes off in midfield, particularly Tom Krause, who was withdrawn, having already gone down with game management cramp, whatever you want to call it, on Wednesday night. You've got, like you just alluded to, Jordan Clark's played all but half an hour of 14 league games this season. And obviously Tahith Chong's being managed as well because of an injury that he's had. It feels like a game for Marvellous to me. All of those numbers that I just gave you at the start of the podcast, we're going to need to stop the ball coming in our box as much as we can. And the geezer who shields the 3 is Marvellous Nakamba. It feels like a game for him, but it also feels like a game for Shandon Baptiste too, because when we have the ball, we're going to have to put our foot on it and do something with it ourselves. No point just clubbing it as far away for it to come back again. Those 2 for Krause and Chong?
Yeah, spot on for me. Just makes logical sense. Marv in the sense of the shield in front of the 3, in case any of them do tire. I'm not necessarily thinking it for that reason. It's just the extra defensive man, and he's been very rested of late, hasn't he? So Marv, but I think Shandon has more than earned his place as a starter for this one. For the last two appearances he's put in has been wonderful. You know, just ability to get his foot on the ball and keep it is going to be very key, very, very key. And it's a different option as well. We've talked about how Luton can go direct to the front men and then start playing. Well, he can do the bit in the middle if it needs to be. He's also quite physical as well, so he'll put himself about and challenge and stuff. So I think that makes just a whole lot of sense, really, both in the way he's been playing and when you look at the opposition and what they might offer.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2 behind 1 in the mid. At home, it's been 1 behind 2, hasn't it? Kraus behind Clark and Chong. This time, I think he might turn the triangle around, 2 behind 1. And that one probably is going to be Clark because, you know, Rob made a big thing of talking Clark up before the Cardiff game. You don't do that and then drop him. You look like an absolute tit if you do that. So, I don't envisage that. I wouldn't be surprised if Clark comes off at some point, purely from a legs point of view. You still have Liam Walsh. You've still got Pelly Ruddock and Panzu who can come on for him at any stage. And, of course, probably Marv won't do 90 minutes. I think that's fair. So Pelly may come on for him. But yeah, I think we're going to see changes in midfield. I think that's the big learning from Coventry. We just could not stop that ball coming towards us when we were knackered in that second half. It was just a tidal wave. So you just need people to stop that tidal wave. And like you say, we're not going to get much of the ball. I mean, realistically, we're not even going to see 40% of the ball in this game. That's just looking at their stats and the way they dominate the ball. When we have it, we're going to have to play really, really well. And Shander Baptiste is the boy that makes us play.
He is. I slightly differ from you in there that I think that this is the prime opportunity to rest Clark and get Liam Walsh in.
I would too. I'm just saying, if Rob's gone out of his way in a pre-match press conference to big up his man, he's looked a little bit daft if he then...
Well, I mean, I was in that conference. He was asked about Clark specifically because there's been a lot of focus on Clark recently, and he chose to talk him up like that. I don't think it will take away from anything he said about Clark if he rests him for this one and brings in Walsh. Walsh has been biding his time since he come back. He did no wrong when he's come on and looked really good, but I think he is better defensively than Clark, and they both are quite decent going forward, trying to look for the openings. And I think that there's that option. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't give Walsh an opportunity, particularly as well for the running. I mean, Clark's 31 now. He's run a hell of a lot. He had a very tough time. He got knocked to the ground a lot against Colwell in the Cardiff game. And I just think it's a good opportunity now to give him that time off. And he did say, Rob, in that talking up of Clark, that he's had to play more minutes than they would have liked because of the injuries now. But that isn't a problem now in midfield. Everyone now is available. So, I mean, it's kind of a big change to change all three. I don't feel that it's a risk with Shandon Baptiste coming in and the quality he's shown. We know what Marvellous can do, and now I think it just gives Walsh the opportunity. So that would be, for me, the 3 that I'd go with.
And that would, of course, leave Clark, Kraus, and and Chong and all the others on the bench. There's still plenty of options to come off the bench should we need them. Yeah, maybe we do look to contain them for an hour or whatever, and then bring the more attacking players on for the last half an hour and try and win the game, sort of late on kind of thing.
And if you do that, and if there is some containment, Walsh has got incredible ability to cut that out in a second with a raking ball forward. So that seems like a good option for me.
Front 2, obviously it was Carlton and Jacob against Cardiff. Eli was rested for the game. Do you see this being Eli and Morris, Eli and Jacob, or Morris and Jacob again? That's the one I don't see. I think there will be a change up front because they run their asses off up front. So I think Elijah does come in. I'm kind of inclined to think he comes in for Morris, and then Morris will come off the bench because Morris has done the 2 games pretty relentlessly. It would make sense for him to have this one off, and also, and I'm not advocating that we don't play him in the 5 games that he could be suspended in, but he is a yellow card away from suspension. So if we can take him out of the game when we've got a fresher body for a long period here, it probably just makes sense rather than him picking up a sort of tired yellow card that then rules him out of the whole game, which of these next 4 is the one that you target to win purely because it's the only home game of the 4.
Yeah, it's a big call though to leave your captain out. I mean, who comes? Oh, well, Bell. It would be Bell, and he'll be understudy. So okay, I think that now that Bell's back, you can do that, and I think McGuinness is starting to show some leadership qualities as well. So I think that the options are there to give him a rest. It's not that he's done anything wrong.
Absolutely not.
He's put in a really good shift actually. A couple of good shots that could have resulted in goals. We obviously had that header against Cardiff. Probably should have done better with that one. But his overall play and his contribution has been quite high. But then he has had to do it a lot. So I'd be happy with Eli and Jacob. To be honest, I'd be happy with any combination of those 3 because I think that they all really contribute without the ball. But perhaps just shading it would be Jacob and Eli without the ball.
I think so, and then you can bring a fresher Morris on because the strikers are going to have to get through a lot of work on Saturday. They're probably not going to get much support. Certainly not from midfield. They might get them from the wing backs, but if we're playing your 3, for example, they're not all going to get forward and support them, are they? So they're going to have to do a lot of work. They're going to have to do a lot of running on a week where we haven't done as much running as we did that last time, but the front players still have done. So that would make sense to me. Or if Morris starts, I think he'll be the one to go off for whoever it is who's on the bench this time. Whereas obviously, it was Jacob on a Wednesday night, wasn't it? So that'll be interesting to see. So we're kind of thinking that the back 3 will remain the same. We think that Victor Moses will come in for Alfie Doughty. Hashi's obviously going to play on the right side. Jimbo's got a midfield 3 of Walsh, Baptiste and Nakamba. I still think Clark will play instead of Walsh. And then, take your pick of the 2 of the 3. Like Jimbo says, they offer very much similar lines, really. Pick your 2. I'll put my neck on the line. I think he'll go Brown and Elijah, and I think he'll just give Morris a rest here. Just no real point in. He's got to be the more knackered of the 3, hasn't he? By virtue of the fact that he's played the more minutes of the 3 so far this week. So that would make...
I'm happy with that. You can put me down for that as well.
That would make perfect sense. So that's how we see it. But let's get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Here's what Rob had to say in the pre-match presser before the long trip on Friday.
Look, we've built up a bit of a rhythm. So we've got to try and get it right. Clearly Alfie's one that's going to be forced anyway, so we'll have to just try and get that right. But learn from the other week when they turn around, and obviously this time we're travelling a little bit further as well, so need to try and make sure that we have that energy and the freshness that can hopefully allow us to try and play the way we want to. But we want to try and make a few more passes than we did last time against Coventry when we were away from home as well. We're trying to keep the ball a bit better than what we did in the last game. So there's a few things to think about with that. But of course, coming off the back of a good win and a decent performance as well. So there's a few in with a little bit of confidence as well now. So just try and get that balance right. So we'll see. There's a couple that we're going to have to. A couple that played the other day and a couple that didn't. That we'll try and give as much time as possible to. So we'll see. Hopefully everyone's still available, but as I say, it's still quite fresh. So some of them are still a bit sore and feeling 1 or 2 bits. So we'll give them as much time as we can and then we'll try and freshen things up in areas that we need to as well. We think will be the right way. The Championship is difficult, isn't it? So there's always inconsistency sometimes in results. Even you might lose games where you don't deserve to. There's fine margins, all that sort of stuff. But they're consistent in how they perform. They're a good team, well coached, good individuals as they were, you know, a couple of years ago when we were in this division as well. So really difficult game, as I say every single time. So yeah, we've got to make sure that we're right at it going up there, and again try and you know, try as best as possible to imprint our game up there as well. You know, they can be dominant, so we've got to try not to give them the game that they want.
Of course, he gave that press conference after we recorded this, so we've absolutely not a Scooby what he said, but I'm sure it will have made perfect sense, and hopefully he said something along the lines of absolutely everyone is fully fit, and we're going to go there and win the game of football. How do we beat them? Well, score more goals than them, of course, but I look at their defence. Brazilian left-back always throws danger sign at me. I going forward, you know what you're going to get from any Brazilian, but I'm yet to really see a Brazilian who's outstanding defensively. So maybe down that right-hand side we can get at them.
Whatever.
They're just, the stereotype is that they want to go forward rather than go backwards, don't they? And that's the thing. Of course, there are some that have gone well, but the other side, Luke Ayling, every time I watched Leeds, he looked an absolute there to be attacked. He's a headless chicken in defence and things. I really think if it is Victor Moses, he could have a really good time of it against him. And if we do get Chong on in the second half, well, not if we do. If Chong doesn't start the game, he'll definitely come on in the second half. That's an area that we can exploit. He seems like a weaker right back to me.
Well, against those two, I think most would be. I'd fancy them. It's an incredible prospect, isn't it? That either Chong starts and does well, or he comes on. And Victor Moses was rested for Wednesday as well. So, yeah, I think the stuff coming off the bench, we're getting into, and we've not had this for so long, we're getting back to game changer status, aren't we?
But this is why I've said all along why I've not panicked, because this squad is unbelievably stronger than the one that got us out of this league 2 years ago. They just need to be fit. Well, now they are, and let's hope they're fit for 25 games now of these last 33 or whatever. And if they are, chalk me in for a top 6 place, please.
I've no problem with any of that stuff. If Chong's coming off the bench, I think that'll scare a lot of people. He's done nothing to deserve being taken out, but we're not talking about that now, are we? We're talking about squad rotation for the benefit of a team, to freshen it up and to pick a team that can go there and do the job. And you've got more options than just the one that we've had for almost 8 months. And I think that makes sense. And they all talk about it, squad rotation. McGuinness was the latest one that I've spoken to on Wednesday, talking about squad rotation, and we haven't really seen it yet. So they must understand that that's going to happen. There's no slight on them, really, if they come out, particularly, you know, if we're talking about Chong. He hasn't done anything to come out in the same way that in that Premier League season it wasn't firing for him. They took him out, did him the world of good, and he came back and he was fantastic for the end of the season, relatively speaking, compared to the fact they got relegated. But yeah, that's a really nice place to be in, and I just hope that the lessons are being learned. They look like they are. Just got to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, football matches these days are like 2 different football matches, aren't they? I mean, there was always that cliche of game of 2 halves. I don't mean it like that. I mean, you have your starters, and then you have, like, in baseball they'd call them closers, because you can change half of your team now. I mean, half of your outfield players. In the Premier League, we got to the stage where we were absolutely fine starting team against starting team, but then 250, 300 million pounds come off of their bench, and 2.5, 3 million pound come off of our bench. And it was, you were fighting, as I said at the time, you were playing poker with Uno cards. But now we're bringing some serious talent off of our bench, whichever way we start and whichever way they come off the bench. I repeat myself, Victor Moses, a Champions League winner, sat on our bench throughout the entirety of Wednesday night. We're bringing that quality on, whereas the opposition, their squad drops off when their substitutions come on, unless they've done the rotation themselves. And now we're fighting on a level playing field now that we've got all of these players fit. We can actually go with them for 90 minutes, whereas certainly last season, after 65 minutes, it was like, giddy up, this is going to be a tough last 25 when Luis Diaz is coming off the bench, or, you know, Leandro Trossard's coming off the bench, or Phil Foden's coming off the bench. All of these multi-million pound footballers, and they all had them. I mean, even Crystal Palace were bringing on 25, 30 million pound footballers. Now we can compete off the bench, and that's a great place to be. That means we can go right to the end, as long as Rob uses them well. And, you know, he hasn't used his 5 subs particularly well in his time as a Luton manager. He's got to get used to doing that more and more. But a lot of that is because he hasn't had 5 genuinely good options at the same time. You know, there's no point in bringing a kid on just to throw them under the bus. I get that. But I'm really comfortable with where we are now. So when we get to that 65-minute mark and the intensity naturally has been dropping because the energy levels are low, now we can keep them replenished by 5 players coming off the bench of a similar, if not better, standard.
Yeah, I agree. I think the intensity of this match is going to be an interesting one because he's talked about not dropping off in that intensity, but you're away from home against a very good team, one of the tougher away teams. I'd be more than comfortable to go back to soak it up and counter-attack on this game.
Yeah, me too.
I'd be happy with that. I really would.
I think we're going to be forced to do it. Just looking at the numbers, you know, that's 14 games worth that they're dominating the play, if not the scoreline. They're just going to, and they're allowed to force you to do that. And then you've got in the game, you've got to come up. Obviously, we'll go there with a game plan. I'd be absolutely amazed if we go there with a game plan of let's go and play in a game of football and be as open and expansive as we have been at some of the other games that we've been to. But again, as well, there's nothing wrong on Saturday with staying in the game for an hour. You know, what do we always say on this podcast? Quieten the crowd down. And it'll be a lively crowd at the Riverside. It's generally well supported. But the other factor is that maybe that we haven't mentioned yet that we should do. What was their last home game? They lost 3-0 at home to Coventry. They're not doing as well as I presume that they think they could do in this league. Were we to go there and take the lead, I wouldn't say it turned toxic. I don't know enough about Middlesbrough to suggest either way. But I would imagine they're not going to be full of the joys of spring if we score the first goal, having just lost 3-0 at home to a Coventry side who at the time had only really beaten us. They hadn't really shown anything until after that game, and obviously now have made the stupid decision to sack the manager. I just wonder if get an early goal, the crowd might start turning on their backs. I mean, there aren't many fan bases these days that stick behind their side full stop, is there, when they're behind? But, you know, having just lost 3-0 as recently as last Saturday, if we can go ahead, they might think, oh, fuck, not again, and start moaning and groaning. And you only have to think of what Kenilworth Road's been like a couple of times this season when we've gone behind. If we can get that in our favour, that would be happy days.
Are you teasing me with a turgid first half?
I would take the most boring first half so that I can catch up on an hour's kip that I would take all day long.
Don't you threaten me with a good time. I'm all in for a turgid first half. Yeah, quiet them down, annoy them, get the goal early in the second.
I'm all in for a turgid 90 minutes, Jim, but we come back with a 0-0 draw. Happy effing days.
Yeah, no, I'd be more than happy with that. Yeah, no, I think it's got to be one of those. It's what Reece Burke said after was it after the Coventry game? You've got to rediscover the old nasty dude.
Sheffield United game, wasn't it?
Sheffield United, sorry, yeah. Why not? Yeah. Why try and engage them in a game of free-flowing football? And you can if you want, but you can do the other thing as well, and they won't like it. Why not?
Absolutely that. You know, the numbers are there. You know, everyone's got access to the numbers. Their XG's phenomenal. Their touches in the opposition box are phenomenal. The less of that you can run into, naturally, the better it's going to be. Be sensible, Town. Let's not run around chasing the ball when it's gone out of play. Let's be organised. Let's be slow. Let's go there with an intention of winning the game 1-0. And if you happen to only draw it 0-0, that's absolutely fine. We don't need to go there and look to win 3-0 or 4-0 or any of that nonsense. Just play a sensible game of football. And if they do do lots of passing in the penalty box with no end product and start to play into our hands, and the crowd get on their case because of it. Because no crowd likes tippy tappy that goes nowhere, do they? So that could
Tell me about
that could quite easily get on their nerves as well. If we can get them wound up, and then we can bring Chong or a strong option off the bench, or a Morris off the bench, or a Jordan Clark if he starts on the bench, or a Tom Krause, or whoever it is, it's going to be quality coming off that bench. That's the main thing. Maybe late on in the game we can nick it. You know, that classic away performance. I always think when I talk about away performances and classic away performances, the Sheffield United one in the Championship, when we went there and had like one shot on goal, stuck it in the corner, kept the clean sheet, won the game 1-0, straight off home, happy days. If we can get one of them, that would be fantastic, not just for 3 points on Saturday, but you go into an international break like 7 points from 9. But also, you've just gone to the team with the best attacking stats in the league and kept a clean sheet. There's nothing for the defence to fear after that. And I know we've got Leeds and Norwich on the horizon, but they're only as good as this lot. They're not better on paper, numbers-wise. So if we can go and do a smash and grab 1-0, that'll ding-dang do.
I'll take that all day long. That's what I mean when I'm talking about the defensive display against Cardiff as a real platform, but it is only a platform if you build on it, isn't it? So I'd be more than happy for that. Yeah, let's bring back the smash and grab 1-0s on the road. Who does not love that? You name me somebody and I'll tell you a liar.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm all over the 1-0 on Saturday. It's not my score prediction, but I would be all over a 1-0 on Saturday. That is pretty much it for the podcast, but we won't go without score predictions. My turn to go first this time, Jimbo. So I'll take 1-1 off the board because I do think we'll get something from this game.
Yeah.
They said the only consistent thing about Middlesbrough, from what I can see looking at their results, is their inconsistency. They've lost last Saturday. They won on Tuesday night, so they drew a draw. And we'll gladly take a draw all day long in this game. So, Middlesbrough 1, Luton Town 1 for me. How does it finish for you?
I was going to say 1-1. Am I not allowed to now? Them's the rule.
Well, you know, it's going to be hard for me to overtake you if you keep on copying my scores, isn't it?
Yeah, but where's the downside in this?
We need to rethink these rules up.
Right. If it's not against the spirit of the game or anything, then I'll have a 1-0. 1-0. Sorry. 1-0.
1-1 for both myself and Jimbo, and you should only get 2 points if you're right by picking second. That should be your punishment. And I'll gladly take the 3 and move alongside you. 1-1 for both of us. I'm sure everyone out there will snap our hands off at a 1-1 draw in this game. But let us know what your score predictions are. Tough game. Always look the toughest game of the 3 this week, regardless of the schedule and anything else. Just the sheer fact that they're a pretty good side. And are going to click into gear at some point. We hope, of course, it's not Saturday. Not as much time to get your score predictions in for this one. Of course, that is down to the schedule. That's not down to us. But if you're listening to us or watching us on the way up to Middlesbrough, it's a long enough journey that you can let us know what your score predictions are. And of course, if you get it right, we'll give you a shout out in the review episode, which will be out at the usual time next week before we go into hibernation for a few days and recover from being in the studio pretty much every single day this week. Do keep your comments coming. We will sort out some sort of something in the international break with regards to Power Court. We're going to have to finalise that over the next few days. And we'll let you know what we're going to do with our plans when we do the review of this Middlesbrough game. It's just been too frenetic to organise anything, really, isn't it? Since the last international break, I feel like we've been in here every day. 6 games in 3 weeks, isn't it? We've previewed them all and we will have reviewed them all. If you want to know when that review episode drops, do subscribe wherever it is that you get the podcast. You'll get a notification straight away. You won't miss any of the podcasts, and it really, really helps us. The more subscribers, the more likes, the more followers that we get, the bigger and better that we can make the podcast for you guys throughout the remainder of the season. That's it for this episode of the podcast. Our thanks, as always, go to the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton for hosting our studio. Promise, guys, we'll leave you alone for a week or so after Sunday. To Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. Jimbo, you'll have to close it out because I need to go to Middlesbrough, mate.
Come on, you atters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
The Luton people